There was an election going on, a municipal election. There were people that were running for public office on the federal level, but around that time there was a municipal election going on. The people were having conversations. There was a ballot initiative at that time. It was for a program that the city of San Francisco, city and county of San Francisco, was involved in. It was called Green SF. You ever heard of it? It's very important to understand that at that time there were two referendums that were pending for the upcoming election. One had been sponsored by one group of workers and the primary private utility company, and the other had been sponsored by another group of workers and the public utility company. I read through both of the ballot initiatives. I got the context that I needed for both of the interest involved, including the company, and understanding that there was something that was not put into the information for either one of the referendum, which was that the private company had to lease from the public company when it came to meeting its green energy quota for the state. This is something not many people know. In the state of California, there is a certain percentage of energy that's considered renewable energy that has to come from one of a number of sources that have been identified as renewable. And every company that's actually producing energy or that is distributing energy in connection with a producer has to have provide a certain percent that comes from what is identified as a renewable energy source, at least 2015. But in order to get access to the specific kind of renewable energy that the private company was providing, the actual provision of that energy had to do with a source that was under the administration of that public utility company. So they had to actually lease from that public utility company in order to provide it through their private company. This was not mentioned in the ballot issue. It wasn't mentioned at all. And it just so happened that island I lived on was in a very, very unique relationship to the rest of the Bay Area. See, the public utility company could provide energy, electricity to certain aspects of the city, most of which were part of the public administration of the city. But on that island was a decommissioned military base. And it was part of a transition itself. Transitioning from what it meant to have been a former naval station into being fully operationalized as a part of the municipality, presumably under private ownership, or as part of what would be the land and the area under the jurisdiction of the city and county of San Francisco. But at that time, it was in this transitional phase. All of the energy on the island at that time, unique to anything else regarding the city and county of San Francisco, was provided through the Public Utility Commission. The private company did not provide any electricity on the island. All of the energy that came for the island came from the Public Utility Commission. It's something else, huh? This was before the election. I had no idea what that meant, right? So something that's beautiful and magical and sacred and glorious, well, these matters regarding public space, public interest, private right, very important, right? Very, very important. And all these years later, these are still very important issues. This whole thing about this energy transition. And that brings up the other thing that wasn't known at the time about Pluto. Did you know about Pluto? I'm not talking about when when they said that Pluto wasn't a planet anymore. I'm talking about after that had already happened. After Nancy and Risa met, after that had already happened. I'm talking about December of 2017, after they started publishing photos that had been broadcast back to Earth from a space probe that had made it to Pluto. And it turned out that Nancy's dream was right. Right? And so, for all those years, all those people, including some of the world's most elite scientists, were saying all of these things about Pluto. And then all of a sudden, it turns out that they were completely wrong. Now, they didn't know about this in the autumn of 2015, did they? Well, some people did, right? And somebody might have thought they were crazy. Somebody might have thought they were hallucinating. Somebody might have thought that it's just a fantasy. They weren't real. That didn't really happen. That's just a hallucination, a delusion. I mean, these things happen. And then all of a sudden, into 2017, you know what they said about Pluto? They said that Pluto not only has a moon, it has more than one moon. And that its primary moon is about half the size of Pluto. And that they're very much alike. And Pluto actually has polar caps that are red, very red. And so does Charon. The moon and the planet are very similar. Do you know in the wild that some hawks, they actually, the females are bigger than the males? Did you know this? It's true. And they don't look so dissimilar. You know, some birds, the male bird's very, very bright, and the female bird's not as bright. I'm just saying. What do you think you know? You were wrong about Pluto, and you still haven't admitted it. You keep trying to insist on compelling us to accept a completely false paradigm. See, it was different before when some of us said we had intuition, regardless of whether we were men or women. It was different before when some of us said, well, you should let us have our own relationship with the cosmos and the planets that isn't based upon your concept of state secret and priority and centrally planning how we engage around the interest you have in maintaining a state secret that's actually our lives, right? Some of us said we understand that there might be actual, literal, logical fallacies in what it is you're trying to put forth, that you insist on putting forth, including how you just changed the definition seemingly arbitrarily in order to eliminate something, and then in so doing, recast the metrics associated with the sacred geometry and the sacred math of our own solar system in a manner that has interplanetary and intersystemic implications right at a time when we're supposed to be achieving consciousness in order to be able to have higher forms of communication and confirmation. And the earth is in the course of receiving all of these amazing light codes, and new cosmic phenomena are becoming available, including in connection with our alignment with the center of the galaxy. You have to be open for understanding that some of these things you previously held to so staunchly may have to be reconsidered before you just try to cart somebody away and institutionalize and observe them through a very, very narrow set of parameters when you've already predetermined what you anticipate and expect the outcome to be. And really all you're trying to do is what? Because, to be honest with you, in many ways, you did not have the right to try to confine your relationship with those phenomena into that kind of an observational paradigm, especially without informed consent. So you can say whatever you want. Maybe in 2015, maybe a couple of years earlier, You thought you knew something. Maybe some things have been confirmed. So, what do you say by the end of 2017 when those pictures start coming out and the articles start coming out? And some people, at least on some level, say this is an amazing phenomena. This is an amazing phenomena. It's so exciting. We have so many more possibilities than we even knew about. Why didn't you talk about that this whole time? I mean, you already had the pictures. You know what I mean? You already had the pictures. And you also already had some sound files too, didn't you? All of those vibrations, right? How it sounded from afar, right? You already had the pictures. So why did you do what you did with them? And why have you still tried to maintain this false paradigm of trying to make the rest of us concede to accepting that your Plutonian paradigm is completely wrong and a complete fallacy? It's absolutely been proven 100%. Your most amazing, highest level science has proven the rest of your scientists wrong. Why won't you admit it? You're still going with completely arcane, obsolete information, and you insist on trying to make us perform a ritual of self-denial so that we'll focus on that because you don't want to admit you were wrong about your spying. You don't want to admit you were wrong about your prurience. You don't want to admit you got the wrong rates at the wrong time for the wrong people, and you tried to pay somebody else off of something that someone else produced, right? And then you want to keep maintaining this myth of who and what Pluto is so that you can maintain this myth of who and what every other planet is, and then people just shut up and do what you say. But you can't get away with that because you know what ends up happening? You end up literally having to clear out entire sections of the library because you're so determined to keep misrepresenting what the actual reality is. You have to cover up all the old books. You just want to rewrite it and put in new stuff that doesn't have any factual basis. So you have to take away the old books so that we can't double check our own mind and prove what you're actually trying to do. But the problem is you already blew it with Pluto, guys. You already blew it. And you're going to have to admit it. You know what Pluto's capable of? You know what we've been projecting onto Pluto that Pluto's capable of? At least for my entire life. At least for my entire mother's life. Now, when Pluto aligns in a certain position at a certain time, it reflects back to the Earth a particular kind of energy. When was the last time that the energy we're dealing with right now was coming at us from Pluto? And see, that's what you want. You hooked up a bunch of deals during that time based on a particular plutonium paradigm, and you want to flip it because you made a bunch of deals with people hoping that they would get to be that kind of Pluto now. But part of the reason that kind of Pluto was able to work then is because it was a complete fucking lie. And so when all those deals came due, you had to work really, really, really hard to make sure the wrong people got the payoff. And that's why you won't even acknowledge what we now know about Pluto as the truth. You're going to have to get right with this, man. You're going to have to get right with this. You're going to have to reckon with this really, really, really soon. Because I got to be, I'm not going to hold it in anymore. I'm not going to pretend that I don't know what's going on with Pluto. I like it. I want it. It's mine. You had no right to do this. So, let us all be reasonable. And let us all just kind of like understand now that it's been acknowledged on a certain level, you're going to have no choice but to deal with it. So let's deal with it appropriately, can we? There could be all kinds of amazing, beautiful things we could be being availed of right now. Stop lying about Pluto. Stop trying to cut us off from what it's really about and trying to impose this completely false paradigm that nobody believes in anyway. But you just want us to admit that we'll go along with it because you don't want to acknowledge what it means to be wrong. Sometimes you have to do that. Kind of like when somebody says, hey, you know what? You got a mental illness and you're hallucinating, and then all of a sudden the damn space probe broadcast back the pictures to prove what you said was true. That's how crazy I am. I'm so crazy that I'm just so crazy that Pluto somehow recruited a couple other planets to sit there when they came by and took that picture. You know what I'm saying? It could be incredible right now. It could be a great time for all of us right now, right? So why do you insist on maintaining this very, very, very sad story about this lonely, lonely, lonely old man that has nothing but malevolent intent in his heart, trying to repress and oppress everybody and keep everything that's cosmically good for us out of the entire system? It's a very bad idea, guys. I really hope you reconsider.